Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy GZTV. We're back with another video. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the 2007 Gothic supernatural horror film. It's in Spanish as well. That's something I guess you should know. And yeah, we're going to get into the plot, the critical reception. You guys know exactly how these videos go, so let's get into it. Starting off with the plot, this is a full spoiler review, so if you haven't seen this movie, I put the book in the title, or in the picture there, but it's the movie we watched. If you haven't seen the movie, go ahead and go watch it. It's a part of my scratch-off poster over there. I will, once I get each row done, I'll maybe give out an update on Twitter or something. You guys can go look at that. So, this film takes place in Spain, where a young girl named Laura Garcia Rodriguez is adopted from an orphanage. That's kind of like the opening sequence. 30 years later, adult Laura returns to the closed orphanage, accompanied by her husband, Carlos Sanchez Rivera, and their 7-year-old son, Simon. They return there, they decide to build a house there, and possibly even start a business out of it, continuing the legacy. It's not really about a business, I guess. It's more of continuing the legacy of the orphanage, so that's kind of what she wants to do. She plans to reopen the orphanage as a facility for disabled children. Simon claims to have befriended a boy named Thomas and draws pictures of him as a child wearing a sack mask. And oh boy, is that interesting, because things are going to start coming together later on in this story. And yeah, Simon does kind of have something wrong with him. It's not like he's super disabled or anything. He's not disabled physically like the people in the old orphanage. One of the guys had a face deformed, which was Thomas, which we will talk about how all this story wraps up later. There's a girl named Martin. She had the braces on her legs, stuff like that. Social worker Benigna Escobedo visits the house to inquire after Simon, and it is revealed that Laura and Carlos adopted Simon and that he is HIV positive. That's his disability, but also, there's some other things wrong with him as well. And I guess at first you think that him seeing these friends and whatever, it makes him mentally unstable or something, that he's kind of a fucked up kid, but then you realize that no, he's actually seeing these people. These are the spirits of the orphanage, the old orphanage. At full circle moment, Laura actually used to be a part of. So yeah, incensed at Benigna's intrusion, Laura asks her to leave. Later that night, Laura finds Benigna in the orphanage's coal shed, but Benigna flees the scene, and it's pretty much a mysterious reason as to why she's in this shed. But later on in this story, they explain everything in this movie really well. I will say this is a pretty good film. There are a couple gripes I'm going to have, and we can discuss that in the critical reception. But, so she's just kind of mysteriously in the coal shed where they burn things, and hey, they're burning something. It's pretty fucked up. The story of this movie is pretty fucked up. So if you don't like child abuse, no one likes child abuse, but if you're super sensitive towards child abuse, I would not watch this movie at all, because wow, there's some malnourished kids involved, there's abuse, all sorts of things. Later, Simon teaches Laura a game which grants its winner a wish, which is interesting. It seems like one of those child games on the surface. Clues lead the two to Simon's adoption file, and he's like, oh shit, I've known. And she's like, well shit, you found the fucking adoption files, whatever. Simon becomes angry and says that his new friend told him that Laura is not his biological mother and that he is going to die soon. We don't know how. It's some sort of fortune teller thing. Eventually we figure it out. But yeah, he's known all along that he's been adopted. These orphanage kids told him he was adopted, and they told him this was an orphanage before. So he talks with these spirits that died, in obviously very unfortunate ways too. So yeah. During a party for the orphanage's opening, Laura and Simon argue, and Simon, or as they call him in a Spanish accent, Simone, he hides from her after she slaps him across the face in a fit of frustration, which she immediately regrets. You don't really slap a kid that young in the face. I feel like that will definitely deduct you of a couple parenting points there. While looking for him, she encounters a child wearing a sack mask who shoves her into a bathroom and locks her inside, and I feel like since she was a part of the orphanage, I guess it was a long time ago, but she should have remembered this Thomas guy all along. Maybe she just thinks she's hallucinating. it was kind of confusing how she was so surprised at like who this sack mask guy was. It kind of, man, that's what the movie kind of painted her character as. I don't know. It was kind of weird. So when Laura escapes, she realizes that Simon is missing and is unable to find him. That night, Laura hears several loud crashes within the walls of the orphanage, and it's kind of fucked up what those noises are. Police psychologist Pilar suggests to Laura and Carlos that Benigna may have abducted Simone to kind of try to get her own orphanage back in a way. 6 months later, Simon is still missing, and they haven't been able to find him all this time. While searching for him, Laura spots Benigna, who is then struck and killed by an ambulance. It's like a fucking Final Destination scene. She's like standing out in the middle of the road, and all of a sudden, boom, she gets just cracked by the bus. The ambulance, sorry. I can't talk, sorry. I had to wake up at like 8 in the morning, which is pretty early for me for school, so yeah. I just got done from like a lab, so I'm making a video right now, so. The police find evidence that Benigna worked at the orphanage and that she had a son named Thomas, who also lived there but was kept hidden due to his facial deformity. It would, like, disturb the other children, which I guess that's understandable, but it's so fucked up. Some of the things that happened that took place at this orphanage is just fucking insane. A few weeks after Laura was adopted, the orphans stole the mask that Thomas wore to conceal his deformed face, and maybe that's why she didn't recognize him, because he was in the shed the entire time and she never saw his face, I guess. I don't know. Embarrassed, Thomas refused to leave his hiding place in the nearby sea cave. He didn't want them to see him. And the rising tide drowned him. He literally wouldn't take the humility. He just sat there and drowned in a fucking cave. And that's where like the whole cave thing came from, where Simon, whatever, was like looking through there and he saw Thomas. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. The origin story is really well put together, I will say that. So Laura asks for the assistance of a medium named Aurora in the search for Simon, a person that kind of like does seances. She conducts a seance during which she claims to see the ghosts of the orphans crying for help. You know, a medium's a person that like detects ghosts, pretty much is what they do. Laura discovers the remains of the orphans she grew up with in the orphanage, like some of their dolls, their toys, which Simon called them trophies. Benigna poisoned their meals and killed them for having caused Thomas's death and hid their remains in the orphanage's coal cell, which is why she was in the coal cell. There's a lot of things that kind of start to make sense for the main character here. Unable to cope with the situation, Carlos leaves the orphanage. He hears all this information and he's just like, I can't do it, you know, I don't want to be a part of this fucked up situation. Which is understandable, but man, it's pretty fucked up, really. Her son died because of bullying, even though he could have got out of that cave on his free will, but Laura makes the orphanage look as it did 30 years ago and attempts to contact the children's spirits by playing one of their old games, like the 1, 2, 3 knocks on the door or something. I don't remember what the exact thing of the game, the phrase for the game was. We saw that in the beginning, and also it's to make the spirits of the orphan children kind of feel at home. That's what she wanted to do. Make it a familial setting so they would come out and they could have an encounter, The spirits lead her to the door of a hidden underground room. Inside is Simon's corpse wearing Thomas's mask, so he was bullied into oblivion himself as well, is what it seems. Laura finally realizes what happened. While searching for Simon the night he disappeared, Laura moved pieces of construction scaffolding blocking the entrance to the secret room. So this entire time, like the 6 months they're trying to look for Simon, he's trapped in this fucking room. There's no food, there's no water, there's nothing. He's sitting there slowly dying, and it's, oh my god, dude. It's fucked, man. I mean, it was accidental. She, pretty much locked him in there unintentionally. The crashes that night were caused by Simon trying to get out until eventually the crashes stopped and he fucking died because he was malnourished, starving, all that. He fell and fatally broke his neck, which that probably made it a little quicker, I guess. Laura appears to take an overdose of sleeping pills, which I think are the pills that Simon takes. I don't know. Then, apparently dying, she begs to be with Simon again, and the children's spirits appear, with Simon among them. This is pretty much representing her dying and being one with the orphan spirits. So she was one of the only survivors. She got adopted. Never mind. That's why. Simon tells Laura that his wish was for her to stay and take care of the orphans. She then happily tells them a story. So as a spirit, like kind of motherly figure for these orphans, I guess, it's good. They get fulfillment in the afterlife. Sometime later, Carlos visits a memorial to Laura, Simon, and the orphans. Carlos returns to the orphan's old bedroom and finds a medallion that he had given to Laura. He turns to look as the door opens and he smiles, knowing that like their presence is around. Pretty beautiful ending. I think this movie's pretty good. There are a couple complaints, but we can get into the review. Let's go. I mean, I really liked this movie, and so did a lot of critics. I would say before we get into like the full-blown review of this thing, it's kind of boring in like the middle of the movie. The movie doesn't do much to really keep you entertained. Like when they're like searching for Simon, I mean the medium thing was kind of dumb. Once the spirits come back later on in the film, it becomes more interesting. But there are definitely some dull moments to the film, and those are kind of like my weak points. Other than that, I think the story is well put together. I think the acting jobs are pretty good. Yeah, I would say it's a pretty good movie. Deeply unnerving and surprisingly poignant, The Orphanage is an atmospheric, beautifully crafted haunted house horror film that earns scares with a minimum of blood. I mean, there's really not that much gore. It's just kind of fucking creepy what happened to the kids. I mean, the spirits themselves aren't very creepy. There are a couple jump scares here and there with the kid in the mask, even though you're not really supposed to like be scared of him because that's kind of fucked up. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. What else can I say? I mean, it's got a lack of cheap scares, which is great. It's deliberately aimed at viewers with developed attention spans. It lingers to create atmosphere, a sense of place, a sympathy with the characters, instead of rushing into cheap thrills. Instead of just going for the money, going for the money in the industry. They really wanted to make a good movie, and I think the book here, they really wanted to adapt that. So that's great. Yeah. Bayona never lets the orphanage descend into cheap horror. The scares here are expertly done and placed in the context of Laura's state of mind, well earned, perhaps even explainable or not. This is probably the best horror movie I've seen from 2007. It's also probably one of the simplest movies, really. The Orphanage makes little, if any, use of digital tricks to present its numerous terrors. It feels like a very genuine experience when you're watching this. The role of Carlos was pretty dull. I wish he would have done a little more in the movie. That's kind of a rough point. Ko is rather pedestrian as Carlos, but he isn't given that much to do, I guess. There's really not much of him to say. Rowetta has a great pair of peepers for this assignment. When she looks one way and then the other while skulking through the hallways of her childhood home, every nerve-wrecking what was that registers and how. Kaio is pretty dull by comparison, but Chaplin certainly is not. Rowetta was great. The strongest appeal of the film is the brooding, intense performance by Spanish actress Belén Rueda, who plays the main character. So, yeah. I think that's who... Yeah, Belén Rueda is Laura, of course. That should be pretty obvious. Maybe a couple of negatives. At the film's core, it seems intended as a sympathetic drama of a bereaved mother who may have slipped into madness. What's even more disquieting is the persistent undercurrent of exploitation, the mixture of grief and jarring shock effects, and the pitiless use of a disfigured child as a source of horror. Yeah, it is kind of controversial. This movie is controversial, that's one thing I will say. The film is a diverting, overwrought ghost story. It relies on basic and durable horror movie techniques. I would say that's a positive. The ending of the film, I don't know. Obviously, the ending was kind of interesting. Maybe we didn't really get full closure there. But yeah, this is on a lot of lists for best movies of that year. So I would say they did a pretty good job, though. I'm out, guys. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. I gotta get this video posted, make the thumbnail, all that stuff, get ready for lunch. I'm actually watching Ozark today, so we'll have that tomorrow. Tizo Touchdown album review will be tomorrow. I should be listening to it actually sometime in the afternoon. Today, if I have time, we're celebrating someone's birthday today. What else? I don't really have anything else to say. Hopefully this weekend, like a 2K My Team or My Career, whichever one I decide to do, we'll do a video on that. On stream tonight, I'll probably be doing some My Team grinding because the game comes out in literally less than 12 hours. So super excited about that. tune in to the streams, GZTV Live on Twitch, all lowercase, and the YouTube channel. Have your noties on both platforms because I do a lot on there. So I'm out, guys.